whatever, I mean, what we consider to be ready. But I think we're live. Everything, my router didn't want to cooperate, but I think I beat it into submission. So, welcome to the Njoystic show, February
Hello.
3rd edition of video game podcasting excellence. I'm just going
Yeah.
to keep choppedly drawing out this introduction as if I'm
And
William
then
Shatner.
people don't want that. People want me to click my pen
Oh, there we go.
for an hour and a half, and that'll be the show.
I like it. Can you play like I can't think. I was trying to think of some like hillbilly like folk song where they use the spoons.
Well, the spoons is that's a high art. So I don't think I could mimic that, and I wouldn't want to.
So, it's been a week since we last talked, and I don't think
Last
anything
title.
has changed at all. Oh yeah, something changed. We played Move or Die in the
Oh yeah,
midterm, and
that was some fucking bullshit.
it was like the pinnacle of our streaming careers. Actually, it's not like we haven't teamed up and played before with Resident Evil, which was probably
So,
much more. Well, it was much more fun to play, and that's kind of sad considering how much I didn't like it. But
yeah, I don't know if I would go that far. Right now, I'd say we're 0 for 2 on games we've streamed together. But yeah, I think Move or Die was just a little better from an entertainment standpoint. But I don't like that game at all. Like if for anyone who sees this but didn't see the stream, it's just a four-player format, just mini game thing that like the whole basic mechanic is if you stop moving, your health bar goes down. So you're constantly just always running back and forth, and sometimes it's you unlock a variety of mini games, but a lot of them are just sort of basic platforming stuff, and then some of them are complete fucking garbage, like the bomb one that I hated. Um, and so yeah, we played that for like an hour on Thursday, and I hated it, but it was also that kind of entertaining sort of like I wanted to know just how deep the rabbit hole went. and,
yeah, I was
and
kind
we
of
unlocked some
surprised.
new modes that were we unlocked some new modes that were just like complete fucking garbage. Like there's so many, like some of them are all right where like the randomness of it is okay, like the one where like just the platform is just disappearing out from underneath you and you just got to be the last one to not fall into the death pit. um but some of them, like so many of them, were just based around like blind luck of like, hey, be near this item when it spawns, and then it like you start the game and it spawns right next to one player who just
Yeah,
gets to dominate that entire match. Um,
and
like
it seemed like there was some synchronization issues playing online where what was going on my screen wasn't the same thing going on in yours. Now we
yeah.
didn't. We unfortunately weren't recording both, so you can't like prove that. But it, as we were talking to each other on um, whatever the
I
fuck it
mean,
is
I
that
mean,
we use.
technically, if anyone wanted to hold our feet to the fire on that, my stream was available on Steam. But like, yeah, it was just honestly, it wasn't any worse than I figured it would be. I expected some of that because there's a lot going on. It's really kind of fast paced, and but I think with that in mind, some of those games don't work in that sort of online format where it's like if you get even slightly out of sync, by the end of the match, multiple times I'm like, what the fuck? Why is the bomb on me? He never touched me. Like,
Right, right.
and,
Well,
and
and
that
some of
happens
that was
so
like
many
just poor hit
times.
detection. Some of it was just weirdness there. And that particular mode, I loved it because it was driving you insane. But it's basically one player has a bomb and it's like ticking down, and you can kind of tell by the like how fast the beeps are if it's getting close to blowing up. But there's no specific like exact whatever. And you have to touch another player to pass the bomb on to them, but they can instantly touch you back. And so just depending on like how your two sprites are crossing over each other, you can very easily tag somebody and still end up with the bomb.
Right.
And it's just it's kind of a mess. It's frantic. What we decided, this is on stream, it's a game that you could probably have some fun with, like with actual friends in the same room. You know, like that whole Mario Party
Yeah.
mini game or WarioWare type deal. And alcohol would probably improve the situation tenfold, or you
Yeah.
know, not because
Well, yeah, it would have improved my situation tenfold, but it wouldn't have improved the situation for anyone else
right.
around me. But
So
yeah, I would probably put it in that camp of like if you get like a Steam sale or something, or it ends up on like a Humble Bundle and you grab it, like and like make sure you have people you can play it with, and it would be something you would play in kind of like that weird sort of situation where you and your friends are hanging out and it's just like let's just play a bunch of random shit and just see how it is.
yeah,
And like it works fine for that. It works fine for a weird little like let's just see what this odd game is that we both got. But I didn't. Yeah, I can't say like there are way better multiplayer party games out there. It just feels like it has this central mechanic, and then like I feel like very few of the mini games like build off that whole idea of if you stop moving you die. Like
I know that's what's funny is it's
because so
called
many.
move or die, and if you don't move, you die. But that just seems incidental to anything. Like, and
Right,
it almost
it's the last thing I was thinking about.
right. And it seems like it feels like it's only there because there's certain modes like that bomb mode. You could just get to the highest platform that's kind of hard to get to and just stand there if you didn't have to move. But even that's not really that much of an issue. It feels like that's why they threw it in was just to try to avoid that like I'm gonna camp this spot thing. But then to name your whole game that and then not really base any of the mini games around
Yeah,
it. It's just a thing you can't do. That's
yeah.
interesting.
Like I was always like surprised. Like even like an hour later, I'm like, wait, why'd I die? Oh, I stopped moving. That's
Right.
a thing.
Right.
Um, and it's like and so many of the games are like there's that platforming one that like was pissing me off at the beginning, but I eventually just figured it out, and I was finishing it almost every time in the latter half of that stream. But like, there's no threat there of like the game's like core mechanic
Yeah,
because
because you're
you
never
have
gonna
to keep moving
right. You're never
because
gonna
it's a
not move.
race.
Right. And
Um,
and then
so
there's
yeah,
just like the little things, like so many of them. It's like, oh, there's these blocks that have red X's through them, and if you even brush up against them, you die. And it's like, but they didn't go through any like effort to make it like it's not lava or this or that. There's no like reason for it. It's just like here's a block with an X, can't touch it. And I mean, that's not it wouldn't be a major gripe, but when you have a game that's such a simple mechanic, like those little flourishes matter.
yeah.
But I don't know. It's
Yeah, it was interesting for a stream, but I feel like there's some misdirection in terms of like what mini games should have been in there and what types of mini games should be in there for a game like that. Um, but it's interesting enough. Way to kill some time. I
yep,
got nothing
yep.
better to do.
It got me thinking though because it would fall in that genre. I mean, there's completely different kinds of games, but and I think I asked you about it, and you said you hadn't really seen it or played it. But there's that game on Steam called Speedrunners, and it's kind of that same thing where I think it's 4 player. I know it's at least 4 player. It might be 5 or 6, and you just have these levels, and at the start is you're basically racing, but there's like a grappling hook mechanic, and you can pick up power ups and things to screw over each other, and it's really frantic. And it looks I haven't played it, but I've watched a couple streams, and it's a blast to watch, and it looks like a blast to play. And it still leads to that same where you're playing with friends and you're like cussing each other out because at the last second they like slingshotted past you and won and that kind of thing. But what it got me thinking is even one like that's got a pretty good following, it's got a good reputation, pretty good reviews for an indie. Like, how successful can you expect to be? Like, I think we fall in this trap where people like us, where we follow games and we see something like that, we say like, yeah, this could be the next big thing. But big's a very relative term because it's not going to come close to like a Call of Duty or this or that. And I don't know. Like, I guess what I'm trying to like wrestle with is you see the conversation all the time. Like, how can we get the general gaming community, people like my brother or my friends that play video games, but they don't follow the industry? Like, how can we get them to care about indies? And I'm like, I don't know that you can.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, fuck, I struggle to care about indies, and I've been playing games for years. And I don't say that as like a dismissive, like I do play indies, and some of them are some of the best games that I've played. But think about all the shit on Steam. Think about all the digital titles on consoles. Like how few of those I even know about.
and
Like
then
it's so hard to follow because it's like it's so massive.
And then there's a
And
matter of like expectations. If you grew up playing console games your whole life and then buying, $60 big budget games, even a good indie compare if that all your prior experience is big budget games, you're expecting so much more like, oh, these graphics are terrible. And it's a shallow complaint, but you got to look where the perspective is coming from. Um, I don't know. I think it took a lot of us a lot of time to get used to these little like smaller development, smaller cost games. And I don't know if that'll ever catch on as like a norm for like just gaming as a whole.
yeah.
But I don't know. On the flip side, we
But
got shit like Candy Crush and Words with Friends that people are fucking nuts about. And
Right. But to like answer your question, like I don't think you can like there's nothing you can do to actually like force that knowledge onto people. But I think we are seeing like I think a lot of companies are seeing the potential and stuff. That's why you see Sony like when they're showing off the PS4 lineups, like they spend so much time on indie developer stuff. And we're seeing games like you know The Witness and stuff, which is I heard it's been getting pirated like fucking just crazy, but it's also I heard it's selling really well too.
right.
So and I think games like that, games like Journey, there's a lot. I'm sure there's tons of people out there who would hear that and just like, oh god, not about fucking Journey again. But those are important games in a lot of ways where it's like imagine like you have this new console and you're so used to these AAA titles, but then you see Sony pushing games like Journey really hard, so you give it a shot, and then like that sort of opens up a new idea to you of like what a game could be. You may not like it, but you see that like okay, there's a lot more interesting things going on than just my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing. Like as long as it's profitable, companies are going to keep doing that on some level. And I think right now we're seeing a new point of like the last generation of consoles, I think kind of showed that like these are viable ways to make a game, but now we're starting to see more daring approaches, and we're going to see more people say like, actually, this is actually a really good idea, and this is how we should make our game. We shouldn't try to get a big publisher. We should try to do it this way, and we can keep our focus.
Oh, yeah.
But that's boring, and and people don't want to hear about this shit.
Oh, nobody wants to hear about anything that we have to say, but that's all right.
But I think it's both interesting and kind of sad that like I honestly I was talking about it at work, like because the store I'm working at is in a fucking bad spot financially, so who knows how long I'll have these fun little anecdotes. But like we were talking like what are the new releases coming out, and until like Uncharted and like Twilight Princess HD, I can't think of one. Like XCOM 2 is going to be all digital pretty much for most people, just by being on the PC. And like the titles I'm looking forward to are these smaller sort of titles, these indie titles, Firewatch and Unravel coming out next week. Unravel, I think, is coming from EA, so maybe not really an indie, but definitely a
Well, I mean,
smaller
it's
scale
it's indie,
game.
but it's an indie that got picked up and is being published by.
Right.
Well, and that's where you get into the whole. And I don't. We've talked about it before, and everybody's talked about it before. I'm happy using indie as a loose term and not having like these
Right.
strict. Well, you're indie if this or you're that or whatever. The Unravel team is small. That's good enough for me to call it indie. I mean,
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen like there's some sick fuck like decided like XCOM, Unravel, and Firewatch are all gonna come out within 5 days of each other,
mhm.
and I'm gonna fucking buy them all because I'm weak. And but like in Unravel, it was more. It like I was kind of interested in it, but then like they released like a new trailer like a week ago or something, and just that game looks amazing. It looks like, and it's rare for me to like just see like a platformer and like just be so captivated with the visuals that I'm like I gotta play it. But this one just looks so fucking gorgeous, and I love the whole idea of like this little yarn guy, like as he's progressing throughout the game, he's leaving like a yarn trail behind him. Like he's just constantly like, unraveling himself. Go figure with the title. But well, yeah, that game looks really good. Firewatch has been looked interesting to me, since like the first video they showed of it. Um, I got all that, and I still, want to play The Witness at some point. So
Lots of
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
busy
See,
fucking month.
I'm an idiot, and I kind of decided I want to try something that I'll probably never like. Internet, hi, I'm Steve. If we haven't met, I don't follow through on any of the things I want to do. But there's like a bunch of things I'd like to do this year that have nothing to do with gaming, but they all require at least a little bit of money. And so I thought, you know what? What if I don't fucking buy another game like at all for 2016? Like I'll just play either stuff that's free or stuff I can get for review. Because believe it or not, we do get some of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's a really dumb decision to make. Like the week
I
that
saw your
XCOM's
tweet
coming
about
out.
this, and I'm not going to say it's a dumb decision. Like if
No, a lot of
you
people
want to
have done it,
travel,
and
if
it
you want
is a
to
big.
travel or something, or you want to, like whatever the hell you want to do, that's fine. It is a bad idea in the context of the site, I think, because we already struggle enough
Well, see,
to
and
keep
here's the
content
thing.
coming. And
Well, I guess this doesn't really work for me right now because I've got a PC, but not buying a game, you can still like rent them, Redbox and stuff, but you can't Redbox a PC game, so that doesn't work for me. Um, like I said, it probably won't stick, and it's especially hard making that decision the week XCOM 2 is coming out. Um, I don't know, but I did already before I like came up with this plan of stuff to do by the division, so I at least have that coming in March. Whenever hopefully it'll release on schedule, and that'll be a thing.
or you cancel your pre-order because you find like, oh, it's that's it last $60 I need,
I think they
and then
actually
you'll
just
be off in Guatemala.
quit allowing that on Steam just because I didn't even think about this. A lot of people, if you pre-ordered on Steam, you automatically got into the closed beta last weekend, and I'll talk about that a little later. But I didn't realize a lot of people were smart and they were pre-ordering it so they could do the beta, and as soon as the beta weekend ended, they canceled their pre-orders to get their money back. And it's like, oh well, haha, I got a free 3 days of a beta, and it was very limited in scope. Like it just had like one section of the game. A lot of the main features like crafting and that kind of stuff were not available for the beta. A character customization wasn't even. You could just click and have random characters generated, but you couldn't go in and specifically, customize your character. So all that stuff was turned off. So that seems like a lot of trouble to go through to temporarily put down $60 just so you can get into a weekend beta. But
Right.
hey, I guess if you really if it whatever.
Well, especially because they're going to have an open beta pretty soon, I
Well,
heard.
yeah, nobody knew that at the time, but then it leaked like Monday that about middle of the
Yeah.
month there should be an open beta.
Yeah, like, but on the idea of like you doing that, Like my concern, and not really a concern because we can do whatever the hell we want. We're not. That is the fun thing about having a site that makes fucking zero money. We can literally
Exactly.
do whatever we want with our lives. But like I think we have enough trouble, like especially like coming out of Game of the Year content, like
That's what I was going to
like it
say.
was
That's what
just
you're worried about is game of the year not having enough next year. It's like, but I'm going to change my particular focus, not in Joystick's focus, but
well,
mine as a writer. I'm only going to write about video game characters' socks. Like, I'm going to critique the socks of every
there's
video
an
game
idea.
character. And if they're barefoot, fuck it, that's a 0 out of 10.
I'm just
And you got to realize too, when I say not buy a game, it doesn't mean not get them for birthdays or through other various nefarious
yeah,
means.
but
I'm going to become a game smuggler.
I think like in terms of content going like on the site throughout the year, like we already probably struggle
I was going to say, I
too
dare
much
you to
with
go
that.
find something that I've written in the last 6 months.
And like Game of the Year content, you know how like I had so much fun doing this last year because you and me had played so many similar games and we
Yeah.
could talk about the pros and cons of them. And like the worst years are when like you talk about this like this is some new thing, but you actually do this the better part of your years anyway, where you're just playing weird shit. And so we get to a point where it's like, okay, what's the best game? And then you'll say some like fucking shit I've never heard of. And I'll be like, well, you're wrong. I've never played that game you played, but yeah, it's XCOM. So it's not Spaceport 1.7X, like or whatever the fuck you were playing in February. Um, I don't know. I like I said, if you want to
I'm,
prioritize
I'm,
other things, then go for it.
I was gonna say, I'm glad I have your permission to spend my money how I want to.
Fuck off. I'm trying to be supportive here. Um,
The other option is for us to start actually like making some money on the side doing something.
making money on the side. What do you
Yes.
want to do? Deal coke?
Meth is bigger around here. Yeah.
Yeah. I think coke's on the upswing though. Don't ask me why.
We'll write game reviews for games, which is actually how a lot of reviewers do it. But
Yeah.
so
I mean, I don't know. It's there are factors to think about. I'm kind of already at a point now where I feel like we've dicked around, which is fun. It's fun to dick around, but I feel like I'm not making good use of the platform on a personal level, like writing wise. Like this is getting really behind the scenes. This is an interesting show, but like I feel like we're not using the platform to the best that we could. Like, I like we have something of a name, surprisingly. Not a huge name, obviously, but like I feel like if there was ever a time that we should either be writing a hell of a lot more or we should figure something else out.
cooking show.
Yeah, yeah, a cooking show that would work. I'm good at cooking.
I am too.
I make
Fuck it, let's
I make
switch.
shit that nobody would ever want to eat, but I eat it and I like it.
Let's restart this whole show. Welcome to the Njoystic Cooking Channel with Chef
Did you know you could
Steve
put bacon bits on just about anything and it will be better?
even ice cream.
Even ice cream. Hell, especially ice cream.
I know that's like a gourmet
Bacon goes
thing.
really well with sweet stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how my favorite way to cook is to just like go into the kitchen and be like, what do I have? What sounds good together? Fuck it. They're going together. And a lot of times it works. That's why I'm so fat.
Yeah, that's why I'm not fat, but I definitely can't run up a hill. Um,
I've been walking home the last 2 days because it's Ohio, it's February, and it's in the mid to upper 50s. So it's like, well, fuck it. Like, I literally, like, my truck's at work. I drive to work in the morning, and I'm like, I'm leaving it here. I'm walking home because I live like a mile. It's like, it's almost exactly a mile. It's a little past, but
Hmm.
anyway, I mean, I used to do that all the time when I ran. So last 2 days, I get off work and I'm stuck inside all day. It's nice. I'm walking home,
Yeah.
and to the point where I walk briskly because like what I was just saying about the area. Yeah, it's not an area you really want to be out in for prolonged. You don't want to just stroll, because then you'll get jumped. But if you walk briskly, people leave you alone. And by the time I get home on my 1 mile
If
walk,
you
I'm like,
if you walk like you're afraid,
right.
I had that experience today actually. I went to the store and I don't drive, so I'm walking to the store and like I didn't need to go to the store, but I'm finding like even though my job involves me just walking around a store for like 8 hours, I kind of get restless on my days off if I don't go out and do at least something. So I go to the store and on the way there, this kid like it's like noon and I have to pass an elementary school to get to the store I
And
go
that's
to.
the worst.
And well, this was weird because like the kids are all playing. It was recess or whatever. I get just past it to a gas station, and this kid who couldn't have been older than 12, um, just short little kid, he comes out and he walks up to a guy who's just smoking a cigarette. He has a cigarette in his hand and asks for a lighter,
Huh.
and the guy gives him one,
Nice.
and I'm like, what the fuck? And then I walk past him while he's lighting a cigarette, and then the kid starts following me to the store, and
You're gonna get jumped by a
and he's like,
12-year-old.
and it's this kid, fucking 12 years old, wearing camo pants. I'm sure he probably had a switchblade. I'm like, I'm gonna get fucking knifed, like by this goddamn kid. So I like, and then I go into the store, I buy my soda, I start walking out, and like he's still there, like he's outside the door, and I'm totally doing that fucking white guy in the wrong neighborhood fucking fast walk, just like don't mind me.
Well, I mean, it's a good test because if you start walking absurdly fast and they match pace, you're fucked. Like, this is no longer can be a coincidence. Something's up.
Well,
But
something's up, but then I think I could with a 12 pack of soda, you have a lot of options
yeah,
to defend yourself. You can swing it around like a club, or you can open it up and throw individual cans at him,
or you could
which is
just
probably what he
offer him
wanted.
one. Just be like, "Here, dude, leave me alone. I'll give you a
Uh,
Coke."
not in a game of death. No.
Or you could just drop it and run away crying, like, "Don't touch me."
I have had times in this neighborhood that I've wanted to.
My excitement today was almost back to my house. There's a park, and there's this woman that I've seen a million times. I used to see her all the time when I'd walk my dog or when I'd go running in the morning. And she's got a little dog, and you can tell it's older, and I say little, it's like mid-sized, it's a family sedan dog. Um, but she never has it on a leash, but it's really, really well trained. Like, I mean, it'll come exactly when she calls. It never really leaves her side anyway. It never, when I'd walk by with my dog, it wouldn't even like look up. It didn't care. And so I could see her up ahead, and then like out in the field, I could see somebody playing fetch with their big fucking pit bull because that's what everybody else around here has to have. Because they're not bad dogs, there's just bad owners. Well, this person was a fucking bad owner because the pit bull noticed this other dog. And so, of course, we see it for like 5 minutes as it's running towards this dog because you can see it coming. And you're like, yeah. And the person that owns this second dog's like running behind it, yelling its name, like, get back here, get back here. I'm like, it's obviously not going to fucking listen to you because it's not trained whatsoever. And it runs up to the older dog, and then it's kind of like jumping on it, and the older dog's like, get the fuck off me, because old dogs don't like that. And the woman like comes up, and finally, like as she gets there, the dog goes back to its owner for a second, and she's like sitting there like yelling at it, like, oh, I'm sorry, he just wants to play. I'm like, bullshit. It's like, maybe he just wants to play, but But this other dog,
Well,
he it's spooked, and when it snaps, that your dog's gonna fight back. Like,
right.
they're dogs. They're not
Well,
kids.
that is but that's actually I've realized that is a thing with younger dogs. Like we got this puppy and
Oh,
she's
sure,
not even a
sure.
year old yet, and they have this thing in them where like dogs have this thing where like an older dog will put up with a younger dog just fucking being a maniac around them up to a certain age. Like they have just sort of a natural sort of like, okay, this is just a fucking puppy. They're retarded.
Right.
And, and maybe they'll even play around with them or something. But there always comes a point where it's like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, like,
Well, it's like
I'm gonna,
I'm 11 years old. My joints hurt because I've got like canine
yeah,
arthritis everywhere. Get the fuck off me. But what
yeah,
happens is that when the dog that doesn't want to play snaps back, well then the other dog's like, oh shit, now we're fighting. And it was funny
right.
because the dog ran back to its original owner and she's like kind of yelling at it, but she doesn't bother to grab the fucking leash that's dangling from its neck. So of course then it runs back to the other one and starts like wrestling with it again. And I'm like, if that was my dog, I'd probably have shot your dog by now because I protect my dog like it's my kid. And again, you could tell
That's,
it wasn't the first dog wasn't being aggressive, but my dog would have snapped back because she's 13 years old or probably 12.
yeah.
And it's a strange
I've,
dog.
I've broken up like real dog fights before, and they get out of hand like that, and like I would never go anywhere without my dog on a leash.
Well,
Just
in our
like
town it's
and
illegal, but the people do it all the fucking time. Nobody's because
yeah,
they're like, "Oh, my
like
dog's
there are
good."
places I can like we can take our dog to like we can take him to this elementary school and play in their field or whatever, and like we can let her off the leash there and it's just us and she always comes back and stuff, and that's fine. But if you're taking him for a walk and you might run into other dogs, like my dog's such a pussy that like anytime another dog even like looks at her, she just fucking lays down. She's a complete wimp, but like you just can't take that chance because they're fucking morons.
Yeah,
They're dumb animals, and they will not understand like restraint.
right. Well,
Uh,
and the other thing you got to consider, like, neither of these dogs were on leashes, but when I have mine, she's on a leash. But then that just adds to it. Not only is a strange dog jumping on you, but your dog feels restrained because she's
yeah,
on a
getting
leash.
tugged on and shit. Yeah,
And yeah, it's just bad. It pisses me off when people do that. Like you said, there's plenty of parks around here, and there's actual dog parks that like literally are like, "Come take your dog off your leash," but
right.
whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's my exciting dog story for the day.
I liked your tweet like about it. It was such a like I'm gonna write the newspaper type. Like they're called leash
Well,
laws,
it's
not
not, I know.
suggestions. Like old
I
man
the only
Gibson
reason I
writing it
tweeted that
again.
is because it came across my mind. I'm like, that sounds hilariously geezerly. Like I have to say
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah. Well, you needed to post a picture also with you, like I
shaking my
did.
fist.
Yeah, I kind of imagine you like, without all the balloons and whimsical nature. Like when you get older, you're going to be like the old guy from Up. Like,
The old guy from Up, but even more like
yeah,
miserly. Not
you're just
miserly,
gonna
that's the wrong
be,
word. But yeah,
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 you're just gonna be a crotchety dude.
cantankerous. Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
It didn't help that I was in like today at work was like just fucking awful, and so that was part of the walk home. And then for somebody that kind of stuff just annoys me because it used to happen all the time. I lost count of how many times me either running or with my dog got chased down the street by dogs that never like a serious like, oh, I'm scared I'm gonna get mauled, but enough to be annoyed that there's a dog tearing after you for whatever reason. But
yeah,
I think it's funny because I usually don't get scared of those situations, even though sometimes you should, because a dog really a dog over like 15 pounds can like start flaying the flesh off your calf before you know what's happening. But I'm stupid and always have that like, yeah, come attack me. I'll beat the shit out of you too, dog. like, like I'm bigger than you. Except for
You,
you're
you
100%
saw
muscle and
300,
teeth.
like, I'm going to fight a wolf with a spear and just,
Screw the spear. Like, I just need my hands and feet and gun.
it didn't work for Liam Neeson. It won't work for you.
Yeah, I don't know, but so yeah, it was a heck of a day. But
Yeah, sounds like it.
mhm.
Um, like, I remember one time I was just walking to a friend's house and like a neighbor had his dog out, no leash, and dog fucking just pounced me, just like walking past his house, jumped up, and ripped a hole in my shirt, and then like the guy thought I was mad at the dog, but I'm like, no, I'm fucking mad at you. Like,
Right, that's the thing.
like your dog clearly can't handle being out here with you like this. Like, you should know what the fuck pet you have.
There's
Like the
a
dog is just doing what comes natural. He
right.
doesn't. Dog doesn't know what the fuck I am. Like,
There's a house that's just around the block, but it's right on. See, we live. Well, I live down an alley, but where the alley meets the actual road is the actual pedestrian like bike path and walking path and whatever that our city put in, and it's actually really cool to have that. It's very convenient, but right at the like corner of it, just like a block away from our house, there's a house, and the woman's nice enough, but she's got this tiny little yard that's right like to the front of her house and the side of her house because the bike path turns and goes up the alley next to her house. So they're both like pedestrian areas. And she just has like a little like waist high wooden fence and a big like 90 pounds like Labrador mix that doesn't like people or other animals. So anytime her dog's out, and then you start walking, you're coming by, her dog starts losing its shit, and she comes tearing at the door, like screaming at the dog, like telling it to stop barking and grabbing its collar and like dragging it back in the house. And it's like, I'm not annoyed at your dog. I'm annoyed at you. You can't just
yeah,
if you know that your fence can't hold your dog, don't let it out there without any other kind of restraints. And
yeah,
you live on a fucking pedestrian path. Don't be surprised when somebody walks by because it gets used a lot. It's not like it's a path that's there that like
yeah.
whatever. Most of the people, half the people in my town don't have driver's licenses for various reasons. Most of them alcohol or drug related. So people walk everywhere. It's a very, very walky town.
No.
But
Well,
to,
meth and walking go hand in hand.
it's to the point that like literally I have to suppress the urge. Like I said, when I was like walking home tonight, every person I passed, I had to suppress the urge to like stop and say, "I'm walking by choice. I swear. I have a valid driver's license and a car.
I'm a good person.
I actually want to. I'm choosing to walk. I promise."
Yeah, yeah, I just, at this point, I haven't had a need to drive. Like I walk and I can take the bus everywhere. Like everywhere I need to go is always like 20 minutes away at most. And like I I feel like my life will go into the shitter when I start driving. Like I'm going to like just drive all the time instead of like, I could walk to the store. Instead, but no, fuck it. I'll take my car and then I can buy double the
Well, and
donuts.
here's what happens. We talked about it. It was the same where I grew up was like by car 30 minutes to anything, which isn't,
Right.
I know people that grew up even more out. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, I had it hard. But it was like there'd be a lot of times where you're sitting at home and there's nothing to eat. You're like, oh, I'm so fucking hungry. And you're like 30 minutes each way. It's an hour in the car. Fuck it. I'll starve. And then when we bought this house 10 years ago, we moved into a city and it's literally like 5 minutes to the store. And that was one of the things me and my wife both loved, like as shitty as parts of this town can be. It's like very fucking convenient. Like, oh, we forgot milk. Let's just hop in the car and we'll be back in 10 minutes with milk.
Yeah.
And now we've been here 10 years. It's to the point like, oh, it's 5 minutes each way.
Yeah,
So
that's the fucking places my dad lives in. Is just these fucking out of the way hellholes where it's like I remember one time he lived in the fucking desert in California and it was like 30 minutes to a truck stop if you wanted Burger King, which you would because he lived in a shitty town and there's like two places to eat in there if that. And now he lives in like a Texas swamp, and it's like you either fucking make the drive That's another like 30-minute drive, and get Wendy's, or you're eating fucking water moccasin.
I was gonna say,
Uh,
go gig some frogs, boy. I'm hungry.
right.
I don't know what frog gigging is, but I know it's a thing.
Yeah. He's every time I talk to my dad, he's always like trying to convince me to go down there because career opportunities are booming.
It could be a
And
swamp
I'm
boy,
like,
a swamp man, a swamp guy,
yeah. Like
a
that's the
frog
thing. Like
digger. That's
he's
probably a thing.
yeah,
Alligator
probably
hunter.
right. But he's like, you should go work for your uncle, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck he does. Like, you guys never talk. Like, he could be a goddamn drug
I
dealer.
was
I
gonna
wouldn't
say
know.
that's what you say. He said, "Go work for your uncle." You're like, "What's he do?" Never ask about the family business. You're like, what?
It's a lot of exporting and importing. That's all you need to know. Um,
For the love of
but
God, don't be late.
yeah, but like, and that would probably be more appealing if he was saying like, hey, come to this like actual goddamn town. But the fact that like he won't like, no, I'm not moving into fucking Texas where you don't. Sorry, I need the internet.
And those places, I can't speak for his specifically because I don't know. I've never been to Texas, and never been. I don't know where he lives in Texas, but I've seen it a lot around here. It's like Hotel California, where a family member convinces you to move out there because of career opportunities. Then they laugh at your face because there's no fucking career opportunities in the middle of nowhere. But then you can't get the hell out because you can't get a job to make enough money to get out of the nowhere pit that you're in. And you can't
Yeah.
get to anywhere else because you're in the middle of nowhere. Like the
Yeah.
only thing worse than that is following there's been so many stories. I'll talk to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm originally from like Japan," and you're like, "Oh cool." And they're like, "What brought you here?" And like, "A guy I met on the internet, and then he dumped me like 3 weeks after I moved here. And now I'm fucking stuck." It's like, yeah, follow. That's a terrible reason to move somewhere where you don't have the means to get back.
Don't move. Maybe visit,
Right.
see how it goes. But yeah, I can't. I know like these out in the middle of nowhere fucking places will be great when the zombies come, but I'd rather get eaten. I think.
Well, yes and
Um,
no. Like you're away from the huge hordes of zombies, but you're also away from like most of the supplies.
Also, what happens when like you're surrounded by wildlife and shit? Like, what happens when those goddamn water moccasins? It's like Resident Evil. Like they fucking grow, goddamn 100 feet,
Right.
and like, yeah, good luck fighting them off, dumbass. I just have to fight zombies.
And I don't see that
Um,
enough. I know it's been done, so it's not like an original idea, but most of the time, zombie apocalypses are portrayed like only people are turning zombies. And it makes sense, like genetically, most of the time, diseases are more specific to one or two species. But I want to see a zombie virus that fucking turns everything to zombies. Like that spider you thought you killed,
Yeah.
fuck it, it's still coming after you. Now it's a zombie spider.
that would. Oh, shut the fuck up. That's the worst. Uh, I would just fucking put a bullet in my head. Like,
I, I'm surprised more people don't do that in like zombie fiction because there's always like, oh, here's that guy that just couldn't cope and he shot himself. It's like, fuck, that should be like 95% of people because fuck it,
well,
like, what do you have to
yeah.
look forward to?
Well, that's what I liked about like games like The Last of Us and stuff. Like they made that seem pretty common. And even like people who are like, man, we got to survive. It would be like, two bad things happen to them, and like just two more bad things, and they're like, oh fuck it.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean, I
like,
guess I got my family.
You really
and
get to test the human spirit.
yeah, I got my family and my wife, so there'd be them to sit for. But it just how terrible would it be? Like every day you woke up, you're like, well, like, I'm describing also being old, but you wake up, you're like, well, I'm still alive. If things go good, I'll still be alive tomorrow. It's like, or I could just give up. So, but
Yeah,
basically, what I'm
that's
saying, people, is if the zombie thing breaks out, I'm shooting myself. Like,
yeah.
fuck, even if
So,
it doesn't break out, even if I just think it's about to, I won't. They'll think it's like a depression, suicide. My note will say, "I think there's zombies coming. Fuck this."
So, like, and then everyone's like, I have no idea what the fuck he was talking about. He saw like one crackhead walk down the street, thought it was a zombie, and freaked out.
Tara yawned
Um,
and it sounded weird.
yeah. But I have still been playing Dark Souls 2.
I
Still been
saw that,
streaming
and
that.
it sounded like
Uh,
you felt like you're like, oh right, I'm conquering this game. Oh shit, it sounds like you still got a bunch left to go.
yeah. I thought I was making really good headway in that game. Like especially last night's stream, I went back and did a lot of shit. Beat like 3 bosses, but I realized there are like 33 just normal game bosses. That's not even like the DLC bosses that are in there. So I think I'm fucked when it comes to playing that game. Like I'm gonna keep doing it, but especially now with like more shit coming out, like those streams are gonna get fewer and far between. Like I'm trying desperately to get as much done because I know like once I have to start playing XCOM and Firewatch and shit, like I'm just the
Firewatch
time's
sounds like a
gonna.
relatively short game though, so I don't think that that'll
So,
be too much of an issue. But
but juggling 3 games at once is so hard for me. Like, because you know how I am. Like I pretty much start on one game and I just try to plow through it and then get to the next one. I'm not really good at juggling shit. Um, Paper Jam was really hard to do, considering like I was still doing this Dark Souls thing. Um, but I did. By the way, that's up. Paper Jam review went up on Monday. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
it's not
Um,
origami.
it's not origami. I was so like I made the joke on Twitter. Like I really wish I hated that game more, so I could have made like a toilet paper joke, um, in that title. But no dice. Like I think that game's just all right.
That's one of the
Honestly,
worst things about being a writer that people don't understand is when your actual opinions and what you have to write about don't mesh with the very best pun title that because pun titles are the best like that's your number one
yeah,
priority when writing.
yeah. Like, is it more important I tell people exactly how I feel, or is it better that I'm entertaining
Witty
myself
title.
pretty much?
Yes. Yes.
Um, but yeah, like that game, just all the other shit they add to it, like it kind of echoes what I said like last week, and the ending of the game didn't really change that for me. Where it was just like when that game sticks to what the basics, it's a good game, and then when it tries to do other shit, it does it so poorly that I'm just like I think it's gonna be a pretty like I'm not gonna remember it
Yeah.
like a month from now. Like I'm gonna and that was kind of how Bowser's Inside Story was too. Like a lot of people really like that game also, but I couldn't tell you anything I really remember about it. Except like the main villain always said chortles. And, like instead of laughing, he would say
Say
verbally
chortles.
chortles. Yeah. And I like
Well,
that.
yeah.
Um like
I
but
love
yeah,
that's one of my favorite words for laugh. But
chortles.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think I like it so much because it doesn't a lot of times words kind of sound like what they're describing. Chortle to me like it makes me imagine somebody like at some point had a laugh that was like
I
and
just imagine like it sounds like the sound like a stomach would make, like getting like scrunched up like an accordion or something. Like just like that's how I always imagine it. Like you're like very Looney Tunes sort of laugh. But yeah, so Paper Jam's all right. Decent time kill. Like the game took me about 25 hours. So
see, and that kind of
something to
surprised
do
me
in
because
something to do in January.
January, yeah. Which you need because you needed to get your it's like with February being as busy as it is, that's like saying I'm going to run a marathon but not do anything beforehand. You need to you were stretching your gaming muscles, which are your thumbs primarily. But
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and also like like I keep fucking forgetting that I do want to play The Witness, and that will be in this February shit too. Um, But yeah, I did want to talk about like this one area in Dark Souls 2. So in the beginning of the game, there's a pit in the middle of the hub area, and I decided to go down that pit before I guess I was supposed to. Last night's stream revealed that after a certain point in that game, a guy will show up and he will build you a ladder, if you give him enough souls, and he'll build you a ladder to actually get down there and navigate. Or you can do what I do, and you just buy a ring from a cat that makes it so you don't fucking die like on every platform you drop down to. Yeah. And so yeah, you just do some Dark Souls platforming and hope for the best. I get all the way down there, and there's a few areas to go into down there, but once you get to the very bottom door, you go into an area that's just fucking pitch black, pretty much. And everything's on just these rickety wooden structures, and it's just a bunch of skeletons, and the game really makes you have to use your torches a lot, which I kind of like. I guess in the original version, like there was something wrong with it where like people could just turn the brightness up and like it would fuck over the whole atmosphere of this stuff, but they fixed it in the Scholar of the First Sin version. And so now it's really dark, and you desperately need to go around and like light all the torches because those will stay lit even if you die, and that way you can kind of get your bearings and navigate there. So I go through there, and I really enjoy the area. There's like a cave of spiders. I didn't enjoy that.
Spiders are never enjoyable in games. I can't think of one spider that didn't piss me off.
They're fucking terrible, and in Dark Souls they're so scary. Like in Dark Souls 1, there's like the woman who's like attached to a giant spider, and like fuck that. That fight wasn't even hard, but fuck that. And so I go through this entire black area, and in this area there's like these statues, these small little fucking statues that shoot poison at you. They just spit at you when you walk by them, and then like, and you never notice them because they blend in with everything. So you're always just walking, and then you just get hit, and you're like, oh fuck, god damn it. But there's never enough of them that they can really ever kill you. There's a few tricky spots, but you mostly figure like, oh god damn it, and you know if you need to heal, you heal, but you can destroy them and keep going on until you get to the very bottom of this area, and you go down a tunnel. And then I entered the Black Gulch. I think that's what it's called. I don't know why it's called the Black Gulch because everything is fucking green. Like it like Daikatana fucking green. And just the entire path is lined just with all these fucking statues that spit at you. And so it's just this dead end for me, really. Like I have a bonfire that's right there at the beginning, but there's all these enemies like you would expect in Dark Souls, but I'm not joking. It's just a fucking wall, like on both sides of these fucking spitting statues. And and the enemies alone, like they'll kill me in one hit. So it's just this horrible area. Like it's like Dark Souls 2 takes like a lot of the ideas on like of what I thought Dark Souls 1 would be. Like Dark Souls 1 was really tense because I didn't know what to expect. But then like by the time I beat it, I was like, oh, that was actually really fair and well designed and fun to play. And now if they had done this and this, that would have sucked. Dark Souls 2 does this and this, and that fucking sucks. But it, I am enjoying it. It's just goddamn, it's vicious.
Sounds like it. Like I didn't get through Dark Souls 1. It sounds like I wouldn't have gotten, like, past the second boss in Dark Souls 2. Just been like, eh.
Trying to think what the second boss for me was.
That pit that you rolled down the first time.
Yeah. That was the worst one. No, I think it was the night dude. You probably could have taken him. Like that's the thing I'm really noticing is There have been a couple of bosses where I've just summoned people just because like getting to the boss is such a pain in the ass. Like that was the theme the last two streams where like I got into this one area where like it's this just fortress, this kingdom that's just constantly sinking into lava. Um, so you're navigating it, and it's full of these samurai dudes who they're pretty easy to kill, but they trigger really easily. And if you've ever played these games, you know that like kind of what you need to do is take enemies one by one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just run into a horde of them. You got to kind of split them up, and get one of them to aggro on you, and then just take it from there. These guys will trigger from fucking a mile away. I like they just know you're there, and you just see in the distance. You're like, what the fuck? And you just see this dot coming towards you, fast as shit. Just vroom. Just totally like something out of a goddamn Kurosawa movie. Just like sword drawn, just like tut, 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 tut. And then like they get up on you, and like I said, they're not that hard to kill on their own. It's really easy to get their back and do a backstab, but like if you get like three of them coming to you, you're just I'm fucked. Run, just run. You just run away. Hopefully they'll get tired, run home. And so there's just an area just full of that, like full of those guys, and then full of fucking archers. And it was so excruciatingly slow, and I streamed every minute of it just to fucking hurt people.
Well, I mean, if you have to go through that, you need to subject other people to it as well.
Well, the problem was I got to a point like I even did some work off camera. Like I just kind of grinded and just sort of saw like because there's a boss door, and I got to the boss, and the boss is really hard. But like getting back to the boss after you die is not easy. Like, and I literally had no way of doing it except sniping people. The bow is a fucking essential in Dark Souls 2 for me. Like because I'm getting to this point now where the only way to get an enemy's attention without like getting five of his friends to come help him is to snipe him and take them one at a time like that. But it's also like until last night's stream where I got a better bow, it was just excruciatingly slow because it's like the same bow you get at the beginning of the game.
Say, that seems
so
to
it's
be
just like 30 damage.
A Dark Souls theme is like, because that's the only time I remember using the bow a little bit in Dark Souls 1. The biggest thing in the beginning, before you've gotten your like gear and gotten up to where you can handle things, I used to use it to snipe people to draw them out of a group like that. I used it for that. You could buy an assload of arrows and sit under the bridge and shoot the dragon tail off to get that sword.
Right. You can actually cut that off too.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to stand back in safety and just like sit back and because it took like 200 arrows and you'd have to wait for it to swing down to where you could hit it, and it took like 20 minutes, but you could just sit there completely safe, like no worries of anything happening. And
speedruns make it so easy though, where they just like shoot him and then run up to where he lands and get around him and just cut the tail off and then run past him. It's ridiculous. But speaking of dragons, at the beginning part of that game, well, one of the earliest parts of that game, there's a boss fight that's blocked off. Like my friend played the original version of the game, and he said this like is something they changed especially for this edition. And it's like normally it's just another one of those giant knights from early on in the game that's guarding it, but this time they put the fucking dragon there. It's the dragon's just sleeping, and every time I've gone there he's just lit me on fire and I die immediately. Which is cool because the other enemies there don't die with me, they just lose like 50 health. So I sniped that fucking dragon, and that took a long time. Like it's exactly what you were talking about. Yeah. Like I was as far out as possible and just like because he's sleeping, and then you shoot him, and then he wakes up, gets pissed, hovers, like jumps into the air, and I'm like, oh fuck, is he actually gonna like fly after me? But no, he just like shoots an explosive fireball at you, and you can run away and avoid it and like hopefully get out of the way of the splash damage. And Yeah, like
You
that
just
game
do that
is.
for like an hour and then
Yeah,
success.
and I said it on the stream, but like I'm so beyond the point of like feeling guilty about any way I beat these games. Like I don't feel like exploiting shit. Like I feel like you have to or you're
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, it's
Like
all
if you're
like they
not
made it part of the game. So like even though there probably are legitimate ways to do things, like you don't feel like you're cheating when you find those kind of because it's just like
well,
all
I mean
part of the world.
for the shit that the enemies get away with on you, like there are so many points where it's like I kill an enemy but he got one last fucking attack off and like I lost half my health anyway. I'm just like, you fuck this. Like I of course I'm going to manipulate this any way I possibly can because my goal is to just see the fucking credits. I didn't
Right.
I didn't want to do this fair. I never signed a contract.
Oh, but you did. You
Yeah,
sold your
yeah. Actually,
soul.
fuck, you're right. I did. The beginning of the game, you sign a contract
That's what
of
the EULA
sorts.
says. Yeah, the end user agreement. It's like, I promise not to cheese any of these bosses.
If you cheat, you have to do New Game Plus, naked.
Naked. In real life, naked, not like your character.
Well, both.
Yeah. But not on stream
So,
because Twitch frowns upon that now.
well, I'm not. They don't know whether I'm naked or not. You just have a picture of Daxter.
If I stream naked, that would get reported faster than like, yeah. We never have any viewers, and still somehow they'd be like, "Oh, this is an abomination against nature." Report.
Well, you would probably report yourself.
Yeah.
Just be like, oh God, I can't do this to people. Ban me. Never let this happen again.
Dark Souls.
So yeah, that's a flashback. Some
Go
tales
to
from the Dark Souls for you,
Yeah. I don't have
which
any
is fine because
Dark
I don't
Souls
have any.
tales.
I don't have any fun animal facts today. So
That's fine. I had to invent one for the intro to our audio version, which you can now find at iTunes if you search for the Njoystic show. So do that. We actually get more viewers on our video show than we do on the audio. That surprises me. Although the audio has only been up like a week, but still.
that actually doesn't surprise me at all. People like video. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but
Yeah, especially with faces like these. I don't. Whatever. They're your eyeballs, folks.
yeah. So hey, well, I wonder what this show's about. They're seared.
Face melting scene from Indiana Jones. But yeah, I've been playing my normal stuff. I've got a. That's where I can, I think, get away with my not buying another video game in 2016, at least for the next like 2 months, because I've got a assload of things that I'm in the middle of already. After that, that might not hold up, but we'll see. The only interesting thing, and I'll put together some actual like thought out impressions on it, but like I mentioned, I played the Division beta all weekend, and I've been stupidly like interested in this game ever since when they first announced it at E3. I was like, oh, that looks really cool, and then it kind of waned, and then like as we get closer, I've been getting more and more like excited for the launch. So I was really interested in playing the beta, and it does some really cool things. It does some things that are a little, it's a beta, so hopefully they'll address some of the issues. Overall, it's the thing that I love the setting. I love that it's like a third person cover shooter, like, and it feels like a honest to goodness. It's not. Well, I don't want to say Destiny is a really good shooter too, but it's like that. It doesn't feel like I've played other games that are like we're gonna be the shooter MMO, but it controls like some kind of shitty MMO that's never played a shooter before in its life. And this plays like you could play it as a standalone, like make it a single player cover shooter, and that would be perfectly good. And it's kind of got that when you say MMO, it's more the Destiny type where you have the big open world city of New York, and you've got your hub, and when you're in the main hub, you can see other players running around in it, just like the whatever in Destiny. But then if you go out into the city, only you can form up a group, or you just go out and it's on your own, and you're not going to run into other players out in like the main area of the game, unless they're in your group. So it's not like you have hundreds of players all running around the streets of New York, which makes sense. Otherwise, you'd end up with more these division operatives running the streets, and you have like enemies or civilians, and what would be the point of that? The single player part was pretty fun. It's the only thing I worry about is like how engaging and how sophisticated can you make a third person. Like the encounters were basically like, okay, here's this room full of bad guys, run up to cover, take out who you can. If they throw a grenade or shoot a rocket launcher at you, you know, you have to dive from cover, and you do have that like dive move, and there's some positioning stuff, but it's not super sophisticated. It's pretty, you know, wash, rinse, repeat.
Right.
But it's got an ass load of loot, and that's what drives me in those damn games. And it does really cool things with, you can get new weapons, but you can get mods for your weapons, so you can customize your weapons. So maybe we both have AK-47s, but mine's green, and I've got this different scope on it, and a quick change magazine, and a forward grip for stability. So there's like weapon customization. You've got your armor pieces, like your chest armor, your backpack, and your knee pads, and that kind of stuff. And they have stats. You know, they boost your stats for various things. And of course, there's like rare and common and that kind of stuff. And then you have your appearance pieces, like your hat and jacket and shorts or your pants and whatever. And so there's like three different parts, and as superficial as like the appearance items are, the other stuff kind of play into your stats and your character. But at the end of the day, between customizing your guns, you can customize of course, your abilities as well. So there's that. Basically, you end up with a very, very personalized character. Like within the 3 days that I played the game, I came to like really fall in love with, like, my character was mine, and that was really cool. And that's important in those kind of games. And then there's the dark zones. That's what this that's what this week's podcast is named after. My clever rewording to Dork Zone, because whatever. And the dark zones are like the PvP areas where there are other operatives running around. And it does something that I think is really neat, but it could either be really bad or really good depending on how it plays out in the full version of the game. But in these dark zones, they're basically just like areas that have gotten so bad that what little order is left in these cities, they quarantine them off. And so you have extra powerful enemies in there. But then you have the other players, and other players, everybody enters as basically neutral. And you're running around, and I don't know how many players total that each of these instances can support, but it's a lot, at least relatively a lot. I want to say probably at least 16 or 32 or whatever, you know, your normal number is in this. But you enter as normal, but you can attack other players. But of course, doing so will mark you as rogue or bad or whatever. And the degree of that, it's basically like the stars in Grand Theft Auto. That goes up the more people you kill. That'll go up. And when you're rogue, it shows your position to everybody else and has an icon above your head to let them know that you're killing other people. But until you kill somebody, everybody's on equal footing. So every time you come around the corner and you run into another player, there's that awkward, like, you're kind of watching each other like, yeah, fucking try it. Like, but you don't want to point your gun at them too long, because then that might make them think you're aggressive and you're not. And it just leads to those like really tense situations a lot where you don't know if you can trust the other player. And it leads to some really cool organic, like there was a couple times, where people were killing other players, and to the point that you get a bounty. And I didn't read into it to figure out exactly what causes the bounty. But you'd see a player and you could see the yellow like bright icon, like, oh, this player has a bounty on their head. And then like you'd come across like a posse of like 8 players that are just like all chasing this guy down because they're fucking sick of getting killed by him. And so you could join up, and you'd end up just like this mob running down the street trying to chase down these rogue players. And that was really cool. But what makes it even more, like, adds another dimension to it is any loot that you get. The best loot in the game is in these dark zones. But when you get it, the dark zones are also like highly contaminated. So you don't just like, oh, I got this new gun, I'm going to equip it. Everything has to be made safe or whatever. And the way that you do that is these zones have extraction points. You can call in an extraction helicopter. And when you do that, it announces to the entire zone that such and such player initiated an extraction, and you have like a minute and a half before the helicopter comes. Well, the problem there is anything that you're trying to get out is free game. If somebody kills you, you drop it and they can have it. And if you initiate an extraction, That's basically like shouting into a megaphone, "Hey fuckers, I have something valuable that I'm trying to get out of here." So
Mm.
that causes people to come running, and yeah, it gets really really interesting as far as that stuff, and it can be really really infuriating too when you get a really cool item and you're trying to get it out of there and you get killed before you can extract it. Um,
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
it
I only watched the Giant Bomb guys play it, and it looked all right, but I only got through like the first part of their video on it, where it was just kind of like, okay, I sort of see the Destiny structure of it. I see the shooting, I didn't, but I heard a lot of people say like this actually looks really interesting. So that sounds kind of cool.
the
Like I
only
like that.
the only problem is in the beta it was very griefable because they don't do a great job of explaining. There was times when I'd be in the street and there'd be two other players and one would murder the other one, and I'd see the little icon go above their head that they're gone rogue. So I'm like, oh fucker, well I'm gonna now you're hurt and I know you're a bad guy and I don't want you to turn around and kill me. So I'd shoot them, and the second I'd shoot them and say, warning, you've been marked as rogue. It's like, what the hell? They're like a bad guy. I'm defending myself. And the other thing is there's a threshold. They did it because friendly fire is always on. So if I'm in a group and we're fighting an enemy, a common enemy, it's really easy for a stray bullet of mine to hit you if you move in front of me. So they wanted to make it so one single bullet hitting somebody wouldn't instantly mark you as, rogue or bad. But that means that there's a threshold of damage that you have to cross before you're marked as bad. So a lot of players, especially for the new ones, would shoot you a couple times knowing that that wasn't enough to mark them as rogue. But that would provoke the other player. You're like, fuck you, I'm defending myself. And you'd fire back, and then you'd get marked as the bad guy. And so that needs to be balanced, I think, a little bit better. Or maybe it's just we all need more time to get used to exactly how that system works. But and I guess you could say it's equivalent to like real life. If you're good and you're not trying to kill other players and not trying to be rogue, you're at a huge disadvantage because you can't do shit until somebody else attacks you. So basically, that's like saying you're automatically going to start every fight at a disadvantage because you're going to be the first one hurt. Now, of course, like I said, if they are clearly marked as rogue, then you're free to attack without being flagged yourself. But I don't know. It can lead to some really interesting things. And what would get even cooler is if you had a group of friends, you can team up and you can go either way with it. Because there were a couple times where there would be 4 or 5 people grouped up specifically going around killing other players to get their gear. So then it's not just a rogue player. It's like, oh, fuck, there's this gang wandering the streets. Or you could team up and kind of protect each other and have each other's backs. I think from what I played, it's going to become a really, really cool multiplayer mechanic for the Division. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems interesting. Like it's definitely more what I've heard from the beta. Like that game wasn't on my radar at all. The stuff they showed, like the stuff they talked about sounded like it could be cool, but like the stuff they were actually showing was just a lot of the bare bones. Like this is how shooting works,
Yeah,
and you can hide behind car doors, and like that did nothing for me. And then like hearing people come away from the beta, like there's actually some really interesting ideas here. You know, my logic is I fucking ended up getting Destiny somehow, so this game has a shooter's chance of like getting me hooked too. So
one thing
I'll be interested.
So one thing I will say for the PC version, and it's funny, I saw a headline that said, "Oh, modders have already before the game's not even out yet, and they've made a mod to make the graphics better." And I'm like, I play it on medium. It's the first game that I have to play on medium. There's no way I could run it on the high settings, but it still looked really good on the medium settings.
Yeah.
But it's very hardware intensive. And it could be, again, a beta is not a final product. So sometimes a beta means it hasn't gone through the final like process of getting things to run, a little bit more efficiently. My guess, with it being a huge title from Ubisoft being 1 month out, it doesn't have a lot more of that to go. I think really what's left between now and release will really just be like tweaking little things.
Well, probably a lot of the, like network stuff and
Yeah, and like the
like,
balancing issues, and like I said, I think that threshold in the dark zone for going rogue was too. That's what they're going to look at. Like, how were people? I think because that's the other thing. They came out and said that there were people that were kind of exploiting the system, and once the full game comes out, they said we're going to come down hard on those people if they keep cheating. And some of it were people like finding ways to cheat. Some of it was just inadvertently finding a bug in the beta and then using that. I don't blame people in a beta test for doing that, but I
right, the whole point is to show these loopholes.
my opinion is I hate when games like I think Destiny did it. A lot of multiplayer games do it. When players find a way to not modify a game but use some natural bug in it to exploit, I don't think they should be banned for that because that's something that's in the game. You need to just fix it out of the game and it'll be won't be an issue anymore.
Yeah.
When players on PC specifically, but I guess it hits console too. When you're using an actual hack or something to modify the game to cheat, that's different. Fuck you, get banned, all you know, whatever.
Right. Um, I think, well, it depends. Like, I'm thinking of like people who have like invaded me in Dark Souls or something, and like they clearly had some fucking exploit, and just like, oh, hey, he doesn't take damage for some reason, like, and now I'm dead.
Yeah,
Like,
well, but like I say, if it turns out to be something like, oh, we didn't realize if you're standing on a green tile, you can't take damage. So if we catch you doing that, it's like, no, fix it.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if it's some kind of convoluted thing where it's like, oh, if you boot 3 times while holding select, it'll, that's a little different. But
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on like the damage being done. If
well,
somebody's using an exploit to like really fucking hurt somebody's experience, I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd be for the ban hammer, but like I think if you're being detrimental to other people's time with the game, then yeah, something has to be done. If it's just you found some shit that like makes things a lot easier for you and you want to do that, then yeah, that's not on you to like be punished for. Like that's the developers. They fucked up. They have to
fix it.
address that. Yeah.
We live in the era of patching anyway.
Yeah.
But,
Well, they're gonna. Well, that's the annoying thing is they're gonna patch it, and then like, I think most developers do a pretty good job of like separating like their screw ups from like actual malicious players.
yeah. And
So,
the division's gonna lend itself to like assholes. If you want to be an asshole in multiplayer, play the division because
yeah.
like and I don't I mean that in kind of interesting like a fun way, like in that the stakes are really high. Like I said, you could get a purple a super like epic rare automatic rifle and be like fuck yeah, but if you get killed before you get it out, somebody else gets that, and they get it a lot easier because you might have had to go through this whole like quest chain or whatever to get it, and all they have to do is kill you. And I love that because
Yeah.
that's like real. And when you group up organically, if it's not a group of friends, or even if it's a group of friends and you just have assholes as friends, it's going to lend itself to that too. Because any loot that's dropped, anybody can pick it up. But it's not like that. Whoever got the final kill or did the most damage gets dibs to it. It's whoever's first to get to it. And I see that whole like treasure hunting like pirate syndrome where it's like, okay, we all teamed up. Oh, this awesome thing dropped. Oh, Ben just grabbed it. Fuck him. I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah, like that's kind of that's the weird place we are with like multiplayer games like that, where it's like we just accept that, like, it's dick moves will run rampant. And like in some cases it sucks, but a lot of that also is where a lot of the enjoyment comes from.
And when you
Like,
build it into as part of your gameplay, it's just as frustrating. But it's like, but
yeah.
that's a lot different than
As long as I can turn off the asshole's voice chat,
yeah.
I'm good.
Well,
You
that
know.
was one of the problems that I hope they fixed because it made me look like a complete fucking asshole, and I do that enough on my own. But one of the cool mechanics in the dark zone is if you have a microphone, you can talk, but it's proximity. Like only players near you can hear you. So they're trying to kind of mimic actual, voice communication. But the push to
Mhm.
talk setting doesn't work. Your mic is just always fucking open. and I was streaming the first time I played it, so everything I was talking into stream, any player that was near me was hearing. And I didn't know what was going on for the longest time. I didn't realize my mic was open, and
And then people are like, "Shut up."
well, at one point I was talking about just talking about the Dark Zones mechanics, and I was like, "Oh, I kind of like how this works." And somebody's like, "I like you too, Vegetable Man," because that's my stream name. And I'm like, "What? Huh?" I'm like, and that's about the point I started to realize, oh fuck, these people can hear me. And I know that there were times when I was like, oh, this person's an asshole.
Yeah.
But
I've noticed this thing since I've been streaming. Like, I like I'll go back and re-listen to a video, and I'll realize shit that like I'm saying like normally would just be like inner monologue stuff is like actually coming out because I feel like I need to fill up dead air whenever I can. I was like, wait, why am I saying this? Like,
yeah.
this was all supposed to be in my head.
See, I think I need to do more of that because my inner monologue, if you watch my Twitch stream is a lot closer to my inner monologue, where just the most random shit will come through my mind. And if I'm like washing dishes or something, it that happens. It's the second I stream that turns off, and it's just me like
Yeah. Yeah, there's still plenty of that, but like, you know, I was like I'll go off on these like tangents of like, so I was listening to this other guy talk about profanity and and like and it'll just come out of nowhere, and then like any thought I have just like gets cut off when I'm just like, oh shit, giant scorpion.
I think that's part of the problem too. Anytime I do start talking, it's the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, so like this one dick at the grocery store the other day. Oh fuck, I'm getting shot at, and so you never finish a story.
Yeah, and that's like something that annoys me, but at the same time, I think that's good for the stream is like at least, you know, trying to talk and like communicate a story even if you get interrupted. But I know watching it, like I've been on the other end where I'm like, finish the fucking story. God damn it. Like, and they're just like, they have like some big thing happen in the game and they completely forget their point.
And the greater the story, the more that happens. It's like, oh man, I saw the craziest fucking thing today. There was this squirrel and it was on fire, and oh shit, there's a spot. And you're like, wait, get back to the squirrel on fire. Like, so, I need to know what happened.
So I got shot last week. I was walking in a bad neighborhood, and oh fuck, like, it's like I want to know how you got shot.
Some fucking 12-year-old stabbed me, shivved me outside a gas station.
Yep.
He was stealing my Mountain Dew.
Anything? So that was the Division.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll have some actual like thought out thoughts on it, and I'd like also want to do a video, but that may or may not happen before it's irrelevant anyway. Once it comes out, I pre-purchased it, so I have that game, so that I will be streaming the shit out of it. I can tell it's a game that's going to take up a lot of my time just because of the whole loot and customization thing. Like, my whole biggest disappointment, my greatest joy was, like, getting the appearance customization things that don't do shit except make you look different. And when I was in the Dark Zone, I got a scarf. Like, I didn't even know, you know, like, around your neck scarf. And I didn't even know that was a fucking slot, like, that you could equip a scarf. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to get... And I got killed, like, as I was waiting for the helicopter. And I was so pissed, like... I probably, like, rage quit the game.
My scarf. No.
Right. My inconsequential scarf that they'll probably wipe all these characters when the game comes out anyway. But fuck you.
Like, I just imagine your character getting taken back. Like, it's like they heal you up and you're like, my scarf. And it's like, just fucking make one. It's just a fucking piece of cloth to cover your neck.
But, so yeah, there will be more Division in the future. Nobody else is talking about it or streaming it, so watch me and Njoystic specifically. Those little indie titles get overlooked by a lot of these other crappy major outlets.
Yeah, that's your goal for this year is like go to fucking like Bermuda and play the Division in Bermuda.
Yeah.
So, anything else you've been cracking away at?
No, not at all.
Rad. All right. There you go. That's video game talk.
Video game talk.
Video game show.
Yes. The show of the video games. I don't really have a whole lot of off-topic stuff to get into, but we're pretty much at our time. So,
Yeah, I can't really. I'm sure there is news, but I think we got a good show.
well, the biggest news, the headline news, is that we filled an entire show with video game. Well, I guess we had the
No.
intro about walking around
Nope.
and dogs and kids with
Yeah,
shields.
we first first half hour at least had to have been completely off the fucking rails.
So like
But we got back on
professionals,
them.
yeah, we front loaded our show with inane conversation and then
Like
got back.
anybody can start the show and then veer off topic. Like we start off topic and then end up back on the tracks
Or back
somehow.
off topic. It just fucking
We
goes where it goes.
we managed to make a train bunny hop. That's
This
what
sh-
you just watched on this show. So
We're a free range podcast with no. I don't even know what those fucking chemicals are called. The growth hormones or
growth
obviously,
hormones.
yeah.
That's what they're adding to corn and shit is growth hormones. Some fucking corn crop beating you up. Some like,
Who said corn? I'm talking beet. We're grade A fucking slabs of meat over here.
every time I think like free range or whatever, I'm thinking like the produce aisle.
But you don't really have free range corn because corn doesn't wander around. It pretty much stays where you plant it.
And, I don't know what free range actually means. Like I don't know.
It means you don't fence it in because that's fucking terrible. Animals shouldn't be fenced in. They're meant to be free roaming.
But I can't. But how does that make it taste better?
It doesn't.
Like why are we talking about it in the context of food?
I don't know. It's apparently an important thing. Things have to be fair trade, free range, hormones free, pesticide free.
I don't want a cow to be completely free range. I want him to have enough room to do his shit, but I
Well,
don't want it in the road.
I'm a big fan of free range beef if it ranges its way over to my fucking house, like already butchered for me. Like if a steak
If
wants
it
to just
moseys over,
yeah, if a steak just wants to roam into my general vicinity, that's cool. But prior to it
can
being
it like cut itself up too, like I'm a 5-year-old and just go into my mouth voluntarily?
right.
That'd be
Prior to
all
that
right.
point, when the steak is still connected to all the other meat and tissues and living cow, I really don't want that to just show up at my house. I
It's just what's left.
I don't really have amenities appropriate for a cow, but I guess I do. I've got a yard. That's really the amenities that you need for a cow. But
What would you rather do? Like if you would you rather never have steak again, or every time you had steak you had to eat the cow's eyeballs too?
probably the eyeballs, because there's cultures that eat them, and apparently they're delicious. Like after about the dozenth time of like puking after eating them, I think you'd get used to it.
I dissected. I had to dissect a cow eyeball in high school, and by dissect I mean they handed us basically fucking children's scissors
Yeah.
and this chunk of fucking eyeball. Like it's not just the ball. Like it was like all the fucking muscle and shit and tissue that went around it, and like there's no way to dissect it. And I remember like the person I was partnered up with, he just got tired of it and just jammed the scissors into the eyeball, and like that's how we left it. I still don't know how that eyeball works. To this day.
I've forgotten about. We never did cow eyeball, but we did like the frog and starfish and stuff. And I forgot that they handed out those fucking child safety scissors with the rounded points, and we were in fucking high school. Like most of us probably had knives in our pockets. Like, can I just pull this out and slice this up? That was
Why do most of you have knives in your
well. That was
pockets?
just prior to the whole Columbine thing, when schools were a lot more laissez-faire
You know.
about that stuff.
You know, Columbine, where they all fucking
Knifed
they
each
went
other.
all ninja on all the other students.
The funniest thing is being in high school through that time period. The biggest thing that they cracked down on in school after it was trench coats.
Yeah, they still, you know,
Yeah, it's like
Like,
that was a
schools
terrible
are still
tragedy.
weird
We're
to
going to
wear
prevent it
trench
from
coats.
ever happening again by dictating you do not wear a long coat. It's like, okay,
So you know, I
that
like
was the
long
problem
coats.
in Columbine. If they had
Like I don't own one.
if those young gentlemen had had a proper blazer or maybe even a windbreaker, nobody would have had to lose their life. But the trench coats would allow them to pull off that heinous act of violence.
Yeah. Well, that's how you hide the shotgun, is coat long enough. You can't do that with a regular coat.
Which is the thinking, but it's stupid because if I can't hide the shotgun, so what? I still have the shotgun, and you're not going to stop me. Like,
Well, I wonder, like, yeah, what would you do if you knew the shotgun was coming?
right?
Like, what would have been different? Like, oh, we
I
would
got
have.
30 seconds of less peace of mind. Like, I knew I was going to die 30 seconds sooner. Thank you for banning the
Probably
trench
would have
coat.
saved a few lives. So maybe it is a good point. Like, you would at least somebody would have saw it and called the police a little sooner.
Yeah, maybe.
So
but
there
there's
might have
also
been a
other
chance.
ways to hide the shotgun, like in the book bag that everybody's carrying around. Like, that would have worked too.
Book bag. How big were book bags when you were in high school?
Sawed-off shotgun's not that big.
Did they use a sawed off? I thought they just had a normal.
They might have used a normal, but they could have used a saw. But the thing is, if you're going to do something like that, you're going to adapt to whatever circumstances you need to pull off your caper.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I'm just.
So the real solution, schools, is not to ban trench coats or even ban guns. Ban kids. None of these things would happen if you would not allow kids into your hallways.
I don't think they were full blown banned when I was in high school.
No, but
I know they were. I know you were looked at. If you
Yeah, it was the how you
um,
got the guidance counselor to follow you around the hallways if that's what you wanted. But which is a shame
Guidance
because we had a pretty strong goth population in our school that was rocking trench coats before that, and it made it very
Shit,
tough
you're
on
in
them.
Ohio.
Right.
Of course, people are mopey and miserable. Like
Home of Marilyn Manson.
you're
baby.
not only are you a teenager, you're a teenager in Ohio.
With
That's
that
hard.
free
That's a hard
range
life.
corn.
Free range corn. I don't know what the fuck. I thought free range could just mean a farm that doesn't have a fence. It's like,
Well, it's true.
I
I mean, you could very well have free range corn.
and I only hear free range used as like a term for like when describing beef and shit. And it's like, I don't know how that affects the food.
Yeah. We had a neighbor next door that had free range chickens that I was ready to fucking kill myself because we live in a little dinky city where you should not have free range anything. But that loops us all the way back around to the free range dogs that we talked about at the beginning of the show, and I don't really want to talk about that again.
Yeah. We don't have to talk about anything anymore. We hit our quota for the week.
Yeah.
Um,
We patted ourselves on the back for staying on topic and then jumped right the fuck back off.
Yeah. So we bunny hopped the train onto the rails, and then the track ended, and we just plummeted off.
We didn't realize that the bridge was out.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So
yeah.
So while we're plummeting to our deaths here, metaphorically and literally, check us out at Njoystic.com. You can find the official Twitter feed at Njoystic. Find Steve at Phaser3D. You can find me at BP Matlock. I almost said mine for yours and yours for mine for some reason.
Great. That's fine with me. I don't need to be associated with anything I say.
Yeah. that would fuck people up. You swear more than Ben on Twitter. That's weird.